No female lead, semi-invincible, weak system presence, crossing, multi-perspective, like the title, this is a lesson, this is a class that requires patience, we have chosen freedom, but it does not mean that freedom can be freely chosen. Everything has obstacles, and from this lesson, we see people of all kinds in the midst of the diverse intersections of hearts. We have come to understand a strange will, Qiao Sheng. Survive with skill, prioritize survival. We need a savior, we never need a savior. Chapter 1. Fate. You are listening at novelfull.audio. This is Qiao Sheng Salvation System 3.0, and now we will load it on the consistency with your soul frequency. Next, please, said a young scholar to the silent person in front of the instrument, after I open up the barriers to other universes, your responsibility is to save the world and preserve civilization, the young scholar said earnestly to the person inside the instrument. Let's go, my child. The young scholar laughed and pressed the red button on the desktop after he left. The scholar's room was rushed in and gunshots rang out immediately. After an unknown amount of time, the man who was working in this world using the abilities of his past life finally began to operate the clever life-saving system in his mind. Didi companion, nice to meet you. I don't know your name. The Qiao Sheng Salvation System is very user-friendly and polite. My name. It's called Qiao Sheng, Qiao Sheng replied. Feeling the evening breeze tonight, he was not surprised at all by the emergence of the coincidental salvation system. He knew it was because of it that he came to this world. Companion, your name and system are very similar, so there must be some fate involved between us. Perhaps, since you have opened it, it also indicates that the world needs to be saved, right? Qiao Sheng asked. Fellow traveler, you are very smart. You guessed 8 or 9 without leaving 10. I will provide you with corresponding assistance and improvement during the period of saving the world. According to the logic of the world I have explored, I will give you a free template. You can either draw from it or create your own new account, but everything depends on your understanding of the disaster in this world. Attention fellow travelers, all your logical thinking must be practical so that I can help you. The Qiao Sheng Salvation System reminds me, so, our responsibility is about to start. But before that, let's go enjoy ourselves. Qiao Sheng sneered as he glanced at the shops around him. Time is gradually passing, and disasters are slowly approaching in the dark, which is unsettling. Qiao Sheng sat in the coffee shop, watching the reporters on the big screen TV in several small toilets, feeling a bit confused in his heart. Is this a disaster? It's a miracle that this toilet can carry bombs, isn't it? Is it reasonable to save the world? Qiao Sheng asked in his heart. Fellow travelers, these toilets are different from those in general understanding and cognition. Based on my observation, they can be classified as toilet people first, and their heads are actually one of the most vulnerable parts in my analysis results. But their infectivity is much higher than I expected. The Qiao Sheng Salvation System is low and profound. How high is it? Qiao Sheng asked in his heart. Fellow travelers, I have explored and speculated that normal people are simply unable to resist this infectious ability, and the uncomfortable singing is also their greatest help in infecting them. At least in the form of an ordinary person, it is impossible to confront it at all, the clever life-saving system replied. Then we need to observe and observe. Let's first see if anyone will resist before making a decision. Qiao Sheng thought to herself and picked up the clothes next to her, dressed neatly, and walked out of the coffee shop. Qiao Sheng stood on the rooftop, suppressing the two sides below in a small scale melee, but those two sides left Qiao Sheng somewhat shocked. What kind of ghost is this? One side monitoring and one side toilet. Qiao Sheng was shocked in his heart. One side of the toilet is enough to go against the sky, and there's also a side monitoring. Although the monitoring is a robot, it's still very rare. Qiao Sheng looked at the two sides in the small scale melee below and asked for salvation in his heart. Surveillance is the one we need to help, right? Yes, fellow travelers, so let's observe again. I'm afraid these toilets won't be that simple. Qiao Sheng thought for a moment and continued to observe the toilet square. He wouldn't easily use the template given by the Savior. If you want to save the world, you must not easily use any beneficial items or props. Even if you want to use them, you must have the power to open the chessboard, otherwise, using it would be like not using it. Fellow travelers, I have a proposal, let's talk and see, Qiao Sheng said, since you are a bit conflicted and lack intelligence, why not contact the surveillance team? They have a great relationship with humans. So, there's nothing we can do now. Let's go take a look. Qiao Sheng nodded and turned to leave the battlefield from the underground parking lot. In the elevator, Qiao Sheng walked and stopped, watching as the number of patrols increased. The surveillance personnel also realized that this area should have some connection with the monitoring party, and immediately asked the system to scan it. The surveillance personnel saw that Qiao Sheng, a human, did not choose to expel him, but instead gave him a thumbs up as a sign of respect. Not long after, the system's scan had results. Fellow traveler, I have detected a huge energy reaction here. It must be a top-notch combat power in this world, and you can use it to obtain scriptures. Where is the position? Qiao Sheng replied to the monitor's thumb and asked the system in his heart, the direction has been marked in the visible dimension of your eyes. Let's go, fellow travelers. Qiao Sheng waved goodbye to the surveillance person in front of him and walked towards the direction indicated by the system's eyes. In no time, Qiao Sheng walked out of the alley and saw a huge object, which was the power of the ceiling of this world. Qiao Sheng was somewhat shocked. Although I don't really want to offend, this big guy seems a bit silly and cute. The Titan surveillance personnel also discovered Qiao Sheng, but when he realized that Qiao Sheng was human, the mechanical monitoring screen was full of curiosity. Who knows how I can tell curiosity, but it's a bit strange. Qiao Sheng looked at the group and asked him. You're the leader of the surveillance team, aren't you? You're so handsome, he said with a hint of emotion when asked. The Titan surveillance personnel watched as Qiao Sheng seemed to understand his words and nodded slowly. The slight roar of the giant object was filled with a strange sense of oppression and security. Nice to meet you, Titan monitor. Qiao Sheng smiled at the Titan monitor. The antenna ears of the Titan surveillance personnel fluttered gently, and it seemed very happy to see Qiao Sheng. Goodbye, see you next time. Qiao Sheng looked at the huge figure and also had plans for that power in his heart. Then he also wanted to go back and think carefully. The Titan monitor waved his hand at him, expressing his farewell. Looking at the silly Titan monitor, Qiao Sheng was filled with joy. Who can refuse a silly and cute Gundam? I can't refuse anyway. Qiao Sheng waved goodbye to the Titan surveillance personnel and then left. Here on the way, the Qiao Sheng salvation system asked Qiao Sheng a question. Have you figured out the template yet, fellow travelers? Of course, and enough to turn the situation around, Qiao Sheng confidently replied. After going back, I will slowly share my thoughts with you. Qiao Sheng tapped his head and said to the system. Chapter 2. Reasons. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Salvation, did you record the Titan surveillance footage before? Qiao Sheng walked to the windowsill of his house and looked at the fireworks outside. Of course, fellow travelers, don't doubt my seriousness in saving the world. Even if you are no longer with me one day, I will do my best to save the world. The Qiao Sheng salvation system said seriously, as if it believed that Qiao Sheng would eventually leave. It must be that salvation believed that ordinary people did not need to fulfill this duty with no future, so Qiao Sheng turned his head to watch the TV show of surveillance footage of frontline wars. The crowd cheered when they saw the surveillance cameras defeat a toilet man, but with it came the huge 3 toilets that shattered everyone's joyful atmosphere. Benchmarking episode 11, those surveillance personnel, although full of courage, rushed forward but were ultimately beaten and retreated step by step, which was the result of choosing to fight back steadily and steadily. The huge 3 toilets made the public look at each other in amazement. When they saw this conjoined toilet, they were all dumbfounded. They couldn't believe why the toilet was so big, and the scene fell into a deathly silence. Qiao Sheng looked at the huge toilet and was lost in thought. He also realized that this so-called toilet man was too special and wanted to turn the tide of the battle. Then it becomes a Titan. Before he could speak, Salvation had already projected the screen in front of him. Fellow travelers, create your Titan and rebuild the world into a beautiful one. Meeting you was the greatest fortune in the first half of my poor life. Qiao Sheng smiled and began to modify the Titan monitor template on the screen with knowledge bestowed upon him by someone. He must create a Titan to save the world. Why are you so persistent that saving the world, the only reason they're together? Fellow traveler, I'm also happy to meet you. The Qiao Sheng salvation system paused for a moment and smiled with a humanized expression. Qiao Sheng began to construct a Titan with the salvation system that could save this world. After more than half an hour, Qiao Sheng and salvation finally created the highest level of power they could muster so far, using Titan surveillance as a template, but with completely different appearances and abilities. How about salvation? Handsome, right? Qiao Sheng looked at the thousands of blueprints in front of him and said to Qiao Sheng's salvation system in his heart, yes, fellow travelers, this appearance is not only handsome but also full of cutting-edge technology from Qiao Sheng. Let's go. The Qiao Sheng salvation system exclaimed excitedly, as if it was going to use that appearance to save the world. Equipment column. 180 degrees quality guided shoulder cannon. Absorbs scattered energy from the surrounding area and forms a traceable energy bomb that can be fired continuously anytime and anywhere. 180 degrees high temperature laser arm gun. Requires energy storage but has an extremely short storage time. It can choose to fire continuously but with insufficient damage. The maximum storage value can reach 60,000 degrees Celsius, but it is easy to cause the arm gun to overheat and be scrapped. Large eye perceptron. Template and enhanced Titan monitoring of human eyes, capable of detecting sound waves, heat and cold air, as well as high precision observation ability in supercomputing power. Shoulder small eye sensor. Observes and processes areas around 360 degrees that cannot be seen by the big eye in multiple directions. Body material. Compressed nanoscale precision steel, which can be used for repair work in areas with iron and material, or to repair by losing its own energy. Its extremely high density can block all explosives seen so far. The high temperature will cause the body to overheat but will not force it to be taken offline. Super nuclear energy space core module. Possessing the transmission capability to connect to another energy source and a certain degree of spatial capability, it can perform short buffering, short teleportation, or long-distance teleportation, but requires energy storage. Superpower core. Possessing an energy reaction that destroys all matter, it is the most physically powerful energy source in the body and will not explode, damage, etc. due to other energy attacks. The attack range is controllable, but once launched, it cannot be recovered over frequency. Skynet radar. Capable of understanding any known language and performing frequency feedback, with full hearing and the ability to perceive the effects of any channel. Attribute bar. Data can be ignored, basically one punch in the early stages will kill you. Wrist force. 300,000 tons of full force, from the special NB compression device of the body. Arm strength. 100,000 tons of full force, theoretically, it can directly kill the toilet man. Footwork. Full force plus 550,000 tons of gravity, one kick can kill you. Body speed. Relatively agile with slow movements. Height. 89 m, maximum material elongation, weight. 50,000 tons, lightweight material. NB, Qiao Sheng opened the equipment and attribute columns to check, and nodded in satisfaction. Immediately looking out the window at the fireworks, he jumped down and disappeared without a trace. The figure that fell from the air was replaced by a larger figure, but it disappeared before it appeared for a long time, leaving little light scattered. The people below looked up in confusion but didn't see anything, and then continued with their own affairs. At this moment, in a battle zone between a monitor and a toilet man, the sudden arrival of the Toilet King caught the monitoring team off guard. The monitors on the battlefield were mostly eliminated by the G.Man's laser and are now gradually withdrawing, benchmarking 12 episodes. Evacuate, evacuate quickly. A large surveillance person commanded the direction of the oncoming surveillance person's evacuation, waving his arm to remind them that they had not yet arrived, but it was obvious that the Toilet King did not intend to let them escape. And then his eyes lit up and he shot lasers towards the evacuation point. The high temperature damage and explosion effect of the laser caused the unresponsive surveillance personnel to die without any corpses, and also put the surveillance personnel who had not yet run into a passive position. There are still many toilet people behind me, and now even the large surveillance personnel commanding the evacuation have no choice but to turn their heads and leave with great determination. The isolated surveillance personnel looked at the departing surveillance personnel on the opposite side and realized that they were in a dilemma. The toilet man's troops began to surround them just as they were about to fight to death. Blue light balls flew towards the toilet people who were close to them. Under the puzzled gaze of the toilet people, the ball of light exploded. Stibidai dop dop, yes yes, stibidai dop dop. The toilet man was frightened by the sudden attack and immediately turned around to run as he watched his destroyed companions. However, the blue light ball and many others rushed towards them at an extremely fast speed and exploded. The toilet dancing in the air made the toilet king very angry, singing, Stibidai dop dop, yes yes, stibidai dop dop, and starting to look for the despicable little man who emitted a blue light ball. But he guessed wrong. It's not a despicable little person, but a behemoth. Just as the surveillance cameras were cheering, they heard a roar and turned their heads to see what kind of fellow humans had helped them. A ray of light floated before their eyes, followed by a large amount of light covering their bodies. When the light dissipated, the surveillance personnel became even more excited and gave thumbs up in succession. A towering 89mm surveillance camera stands before their eyes, calmly gazing at the toilet king. The surveillance person seemed to sense the admiration of the surveillance people below and lowered his head to look at their praise. He also raised his hand to give them a thumbs up. The group of surveillance personnel seemed very excited and began to dance around. Qiao Sheng looked at the happy surveillance cameras below and smiled, saying, "So innocent." The 89mm Titan surveillance camera was transformed by Qiao Sheng. Qiao Sheng's salvation system served as the main system of the Titan, and Qiao Sheng came here as an action and user. Qiao Sheng was randomly teleporting in one direction and happened to see the current situation on the road. He immediately fired his shoulder gun and also used this opportunity to appear here. Now Qiao Sheng's tall appearance is admired by the surveillance personnel below. Stibidai dop dop dop, yes yes, stibidai dop dop. The toilet king looked at Qiao Sheng, who was several heads taller than him, with a very serious expression in his eyes. After sensing the combat power around him, he could only temporarily retreat. Qiao Sheng looked at the toilet king, who was gradually retreating, and slowly lifted one hand. The high-temperature laser gun on his arm began to charge energy, and soon it was fired at him. The temperature twisted even the air, and the toilet king immediately blocked the attack with his eyes and laser. Although it did not completely block it, it also caused the laser emitted by Qiao Sheng to shift, and then took the opportunity to drill into the tall building and disappear. Qiao Sheng walked slowly over to check and found that he had not seen any toilet people. He walked back with peace of mind and squatted down to look at the surveillance person below. They were discussing something with each other there, and then a small surveillance person walked out and said to Qiao Sheng by sending a channel, "Titan King, may I ask if you have anything to do with our Titan monitor synthesizer? We don't seem to have seen you before." Qiao Sheng glanced at the small surveillance camera and immediately answered with a clear understanding. "A bit, but we haven't met before. I came to save the world. Do you need anything?" Seeing Qiao Sheng unwilling to disclose, there was nothing they could do, but fortunately, this Titan King, who is similar to Titan surveillance, is in the same camp. Immediately, the small surveillance person continued to speak. "Can you help us go back? We'll show you the way. We need to take this toilet information back to headquarters first. Didn't we evacuate some surveillance personnel just now? Why are you still going back?" Qiao Sheng asked. Even if they evacuate, their first mission is not to go back, but to find other groups to gather strength, and then fight against the toilet people again. This kind of intelligence is transmitted too slowly, which is not conducive to the war situation. The small surveillance personnel answered Qiao Sheng's doubts. "I understand." Qiao Sheng nodded and spread his hand open in front of the group of surveillance cameras, watching as they slowly climbed up and began to think about other things in their hearts. "Fellow traveler, that big toilet is the biggest problem so far, and in the recent confrontation, it was already scanned that his existence is a great disaster for the world." The Qiao Sheng salvation system spoke softly at this moment. Upon hearing these things, Qiao Sheng's initial thoughts began to turn into the big toilet mentioned by the thinking system. He then asked the small surveillance person in his hand who had just talked to him, What is the existence of that large toilet that emits lasers? Are you referring to the Toilet King who was just knocked back by you? He is at the same level of existence as our Titan Dreadnought surveillance. Currently, we are also thinking of ways to deal with him. In possible situations, we cannot easily use our trumps, the small surveillance person replied thoughtfully. Qiao Sheng nodded and looked at the surveillance personnel who had already climbed up and asked the small surveillance personnel. Where are you going? It's about 5 kilometers over there. The small surveillance person pointed to the direction deep in the city and said. Qiao Sheng slowly stood up and let out a loud roar, then took the surveillance cameras in his hand and the people turned into photons and drifted away. Chapter 3. Contact. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Guangsan appeared again from the sky, attracting the attention of a group of people. When the visual cover brought by Guangsan disappeared, the figure that appeared shocked them very much. Qiao Sheng looked at the towering buildings around him, searched for the surveillance personnel patrolling here, and then squatted down to release the surveillance personnel in his hands. The surveillance person in the palm of the hand was obviously shocked by this way of moving forward, especially the small surveillance person, who had been silent since just now. It wasn't until the surveillance personnel in the same industry patted him that he regained consciousness and thanked Qiao Sheng. Thank you very much, Titan King. May I ask what your name is? Qiao Sheng thought for a moment and replied. The Savior. Clever life, Savior, Qiao Sheng, we will remember your help. I wonder what your next action is. The small surveillance person has crawled down from the palm of their hand and asked Qiao Sheng. Qiao Sheng slowly stood up, and the huge mechanical roar filled the people and surveillance personnel around with peace of mind. As he stood up, he took the opportunity to reply. Go and see other war zones, then observe the situation. After speaking, Qiao Sheng once again transformed into photons and disappeared. As he watched Qiao Sheng leave, the surveillance personnel he brought raised their thumbs again to show respect. An unidentified surveillance person walked over and asked the person who was talking to Qiao Sheng. Friend, can you tell me about any situation? When I inform Titan Dreadnought surveillance and headquarters of the intelligence, you will also know. The small surveillance personnel quickly replied and hurriedly walked towards headquarters. The interrogating surveillance person nodded and started asking other surveillance people, where are we going next? Fellow travelers, asked the Qiao Sheng salvation system, can you scan where there is a high-energy reaction? Where are we going? Let's go catch the Toilet King, Qiao Sheng thought, understood, currently scanning. In no time, the Qiao Sheng salvation system scanned most areas and informed Qiao Sheng of the situation in each area. Cleverly touched his chin and started thinking. So far, the disaster that a species brings is that it must destroy all of them, otherwise there will be endless consequences. Let's observe first, Qiao Sheng said, transforming his body back to the previous person's appearance and walking on the street. He found a high ground and began to observe. Time gradually passed, during which Qiao Sheng saw a laser cannon hanging in the sky being destroyed by 2 lasers. The system also prompted the Titan surveillance personnel to move and killed a powerful biological sign, and time slowly approached dusk. As dusk approached, Qiao Sheng watched as Titan surveillance cameras flew by to support him, as well as those downstairs who had already fought similar toilets to the surveillance cameras, and a Toilet King. Fellow travelers, this is even more an opportunity now. Let's collaborate with the Titan monitors. The Qiao Sheng salvation system suggests. I think it's possible, said Qiao Sheng, continuing to watch as the Titan surveillance personnel who grabbed the 2 spider toilet men crushed them, waiting for the opportunity to insert into the battle. Stibidai dop yes stibidai dop. The Toilet King rushed out from the side, with a strong laser shooting at the Titan surveillance personnel in his eyes. The Titan surveillance personnel were already prepared to take out a shield from behind and easily block the laser, but with a teasing smile, the Toilet King stopped the laser, and then behind the Toilet King, suddenly a self-destructing soldier with 6 rockets behind him rushed towards the Titan surveillance personnel. It is obvious that both sides have already had targeted plans for each other. Qiao Sheng had already guessed in his heart when he saw the appearance of the self-destructing soldiers, and then transformed into the 89-meter giant figure again on the battlefield. The figure that appeared from the shimmering sky kicked the self-destructing toilet man, who rushed over and stepped on the ground. Unable to move as he slowly stood up, he let out a huge roar, causing the toilet people below to scatter one after another. Qiao Sheng lifted his blue and gold eyes and looked at the unbelievable toilet king, who had stopped singing. Even the Titan surveillance personnel behind him were shocked by Qiao Sheng's appearance. He was very happy and twisted his antenna board ear on top of his head, then walked over to Qiao Sheng and watched the toilet king. But the toilet king did not cowardly escape because of this, and continued to sing with a roar, "Stibidai dop dop dop, yes yes, stibidai dop dop." Immediately, more toilets began to flood behind him, and the army rushed towards the two titans. The surveillance personnel who watched the battle immediately gave up and joined the battlefield, realizing the seriousness of the situation. Later, the support from the surveillance personnel also came incredibly quickly, balancing the battles. Except for the titans, Qiao Sheng looked at the toilet king and was thinking about why he was so confident, but the titan surveillance person next to him didn't care. He then rushed up and waved at the toilet king one punch after another. The toilet king didn't even have a hand, and was hit to death by the shield of the Titan monitor. When the Titan monitor tried to pull the toilet king's toilet leash, a slightly bright object had already flown over from the sky, and the toilet king also showed a successful smile, immediately forcefully pushing the Titan surveillance personnel away and then infiltrating the city and disappearing. The Titan surveillance personnel were just about to catch up when Qiao Sheng forcibly pulled them back and protected them with clothes. A missile exploded at the location of the Titan surveillance personnel with immense power, instantly evaporating the chaotic battlefield and city. Even the Titan surveillance personnel were not fully protected by Qiao Sheng at this time, resulting in the loss of one hand. Qiao Sheng felt the terrifying high temperature and energy, and then the system made an explanation. Intercontinental missiles, which are military strategic deterrence weapons, are likely to be used after being invaded by toilet people, with the aim of completely eliminating you and Titan surveillance personnel. If you just drag the toilet king, maybe you can replace him. After all, you are not afraid of intercontinental missiles with Qiao Sheng technology. Qiao Sheng salvation system said, but the Titan surveillance personnel can't handle it. Is it still possible for this missile to be launched? Qiao Sheng asked. Fellow travelers, I cannot guarantee anything else, but this missile should not be able to do so. Why? Because of this missile, only the one just fired, but I'm afraid it can be rebuilt. If that's the case, it would be troublesome. Qiao Sheng thought about the problem behind it, but I have an idea. Fellow travelers may as well listen. Let's talk about it. Qiao Sheng put aside his thoughts and said curiously, the military had probably guessed this situation before, so there was only one intercontinental missile, and the rest had already been destroyed. We might as well go to the military district to get some things we need. The Qiao Sheng salvation system said, okay, then deal with the present for now. Qiao Sheng released the Titan surveillance personnel and said regretfully to him, overall, I apologize that I cannot save all the surveillance personnel, but you are currently the most important. I hope you can find a way to win. The Titan surveillance personnel looked down at their companions' corpses in silence. Even the ears of the antenna board that often stood up fell off. Overall, I'll leave first. Please be well prepared for the next victory. After Qiao Sheng finished speaking, the huge body scattered into photons and disappeared. The Titan surveillance personnel watched as Qiao Sheng left and then looked at the remains on the ground. The Titan surveillance personnel's eyes were filled with blood red, and then silently flew away with the rocket backpack behind them. Chapter 4. Secrets. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Salvation, what do we need? After Guangsan revealed her huge figure, Qiao Sheng looked at the endless desert in front of her and asked the system, fellow travelers, we need some strong steel from this world, as well as some copper wire and polymer fluid. I need to improve your Titan radar first, so that even if they build missiles in the future, they won't be useful even if they are launched. The explanation of the Qiao Sheng salvation system is, oh. Does the radar still have this effect? Qiao Sheng asked curiously. Of course, high vibration frequencies can directly disable the thrusters of missiles. As long as improvements are made and the distance is sufficient, those missiles can be destroyed directly in the air. The Qiao Sheng salvation system confidently said, "I'll leave it to you, I'll go find the necessary materials." Qiao Sheng nodded and walked towards the only launch well in the desert. Qiao Sheng walked up to the top of the launch well, slowly squatted down and punched hard, creating a big hole in the well. Then, he transformed into a humanoid and jumped down from the hole in the well. By utilizing the transformation of matter and matter, it transforms into the mass of a titan at the moment of landing and then converts back to prevent it from becoming larger, resulting in a successful landing. Qiao Sheng began to slowly explore here, with high-precision instruments scattered throughout the road. It seems that this is not a simple military district. Important place. Finally, in a room, Qiao Sheng found a cultivation tank and a research report. The research report is as follows. On March 6, a significant step forward for humanity was made by successfully discovering some of the fulcrums of the mental brain. It was crossed out on March 7. On March 8, while excavating the fulcrum of the mental brain, the object was always together with the toilet, and it is unclear what the situation is. March 9, today is another big progress, but the eyes of the experimental subject are always a bit joking. Let's report this issue to the security first. On March XX, there was a big problem. They were colliding with my room, and all the security was killed, becoming their own kind. I will write down the experimental parameters, hoping that future people can change all of this. But unfortunately, there were no words left at the end, so I guess I was swallowed by the monster before I even wrote it. Qiao Sheng looked up at the cultivation tank when he saw this, and the green nutritional supplements on it made him a little annoyed. Is this the origin of the toilet man? No, it's too quiet. Qiao frowned and then turned around and walked out of the room to explore other rooms to see if there was any other intelligence. Just as I passed by a warehouse, the Qiao Sheng salvation system reminded Qiao Sheng, "Fellow traveler, I noticed an energy reaction. This place is not suitable for staying for a long time. The truth is not important. Once we find what we need, let's withdraw first." The Qiao Sheng salvation system suggested, looking at the materials gathered in front of us. Qiao Sheng walked slowly back and nodded as he looked at a large area of materials. He then pressed his hand against it and asked the system to store the materials. The Qiao Sheng salvation system folds the materials and stores them in its own space, and then gestures to Qiao Sheng. Qiao Sheng nodded and transformed into a titan, breaking through the entire base, then scattered into dots of light and left. After Qiao Sheng left, a group of toilet people slowly gathered and looked at the launch well protruding several holes, looking at each other with confusion on their faces. It wasn't until an elderly toilet person looked at the wreckage below and showed a strange smile. "Fellow travelers, a new faction has emerged to assist, it's the Sound Man," the Qiao Sheng salvation system reminds us. Sound Man. It seems that the battle situation is not ideal, we need to go back quickly. Qiao Sheng thought of this and teleported again, heading towards the city. At the same time, in a theater of war, surveillance and sound personnel were working together to deal with the toilet man on this street, but a huge bandit toilet man suddenly appeared, making the situation somewhat unfavorable for the war. Benchmarking episode 26, the first appearance of Titan Soundman. But at this moment, a huge sound of sound reached the hearts of every speaker and monitor, inspiring and full of power. "We will find you, look." A crimson Titan Sound Man flew over and fired at the huge bandit toilet man in the air, using cannons on his forearms. Acting on your best behavior, the Titan Sound Man gradually approached the bandit toilet man and landed in front of him, turning into a fist and foot attack when he was confused by a single shot. Turn your back on Mother Nature to be your most authentic self. Raising his right hand, he suddenly punched the entire body of the bandit toilet man, making it seem like he had flown out. It roared angrily at the Titan speaker, but the Titan speaker couldn't bear it. It stuffed the huge muzzle on its forearm into the mouth of the bandit toilet man. Everyone wants to rule the world. One shot suppressed the situation, and then the Titan speaker reached out to pull the toilet leash of the bandit toilet man. It could only be powerless and furious. The loud sound of flushing expressed how easily the bandit toilet man was killed. The Titan speaker immediately sat on the toilet, delivering a silent speech from the winner. The surveillance personnel gave a thumbs up to the Titan speaker as a sign of respect, But soon they saw a bright light appearing next to the Titan speaker and became even happier. The surveillance personnel have already known about the existence of Qiao Sheng, but the intelligence of the sound personnel has not been shared with each other yet, but there is still some politeness. The Titan sound engineer stood up vigilantly, and after seeing the light disappear and revealing a similar appearance to the surveillance team, his alert heart lowered a bit. He looked up and greeted Qiao Sheng, saying, "Hello, ally, nice to meet you." Qiao Sheng slowly stood up and looked at the Titan speaker, who was only about half his height, and gave him a thumbs up. He also responded to this praise with a thumbs up. The Titan sound engineer looked at Qiao Sheng, who was more than twice his height, and admired him a bit. He chatted with Qiao Sheng. "Ali, what's your name?" "You can call me the speaker or Crimson. I am the savior Qiao Sheng." "You can directly call me Qiao Sheng, but how did your audio system come to support me?" Qiao Sheng took the opportunity to ask because that heart-wrenching missile caused the surveillance personnel to lose a lot of strength, and even caused irresistible damage to the Titan surveillance synthesizer. "As a friend, we must help at this time," the Titan sound engineer replied after thinking for a moment. "By the way, don't you know?" The Titan sound engineer looked at the puzzled Qiao Sheng and asked, "I'm sorry, I really don't know. I just helped the surveillance personnel, not the real surveillance personnel. As my name suggests, my responsibility is to save the world. No matter what kind of enemy it is, I will step forward," Qiao Sheng replied truthfully. "So it's like this, no wonder." The Titan sound engineer looked at Qiao Sheng thoughtfully and nodded, muttering to himself, "I'll go find the Toilet King later, and you'll be the one in charge of the war zone here." Qiao Sheng entrusted to the Titan sound man, "I understand." "Qiao Sheng, good luck to you." The Titan speaker gently waved his hand at Qiao Sheng and looked at Qiao Sheng's blessings as they turned into light and dissipated. Then he kicked away the toilet of the bandit toilet man and took off again, flying towards other war zones. And the nearby sound and surveillance personnel have already continued to move forward while chatting with the two Titans to achieve victory, seize the opportunity to pursue it. Chapter 5. Hardline Action. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Fellow travelers, I have detected the coordinates of the Toilet King, but there are many co-frequency energy reactions there. I believe it must be the main team of toilet people. Do you still want to go? Go, of course. You upgrade the radar first, and I'll go have a meal first, Qiao Sheng said quickly. He forgot to eat yesterday and was too busy thinking. He played all day and now hurry to make up for it. Understood, currently undergoing reconstruction. After that, the Qiao Sheng salvation system began to work seriously. Qiao Sheng walked in the quiet city, searching for shops with people. But obviously, due to the toilet man and the deterrence of the intercontinental missile, no one will come out now. This made Qiao Sheng sigh with a slight regret and say, "Alas, it seems that the delicious food has left me." Just as passing by an alley, Qiao Sheng's sharp eyes caught sight of a restaurant that was currently operating, and he walked over curiously. It's still a high-end restaurant. Qiao Sheng looked at this elegant Western food and thought for a moment that there were no other shops around. He could only reluctantly give up and take out a little money he earned in this world and walk in. Suddenly, an elegant piano sound came from inside, and Qiao Sheng walked towards the direction of the sound. An elegant old man was playing the piano selflessly, unaware that there was someone standing behind him, enjoying the beautiful music. After finishing the song, Qiao Sheng slowly applauded and cheered, setting a good moral example for the audience, although there is only one audience left. The old man slowly stood up and saluted Qiao Sheng, thanking Qiao Sheng for his appreciation. He then gracefully walked down from above to Qiao Sheng's face. The old man looked at Qiao Sheng, and Qiao Sheng was also looking at the old man. Then, the old man leaned aside and used his hand to salute, saying, "Sir, this way, please." "Thank you," Qiao Sheng whispered back and then walked towards the inside, and then the old man also followed behind Qiao Sheng. The two of them walked towards the tables and chairs in the restaurant. When Qiao Sheng sat down, he gestured to the old man with his hand to face him. The old man nodded and slowly sat down with him. "Sir, are you also here to persuade the old man?" The old man asked. "No, sir. I just want to have a peaceful lunch here," Qiao Sheng replied with a smile. "Well, ha ha ha, sir, what do you want to eat?" I'll pay for your lunch, the old man chuckled lightly after realizing it. Just as Qiao Sheng was about to say something, he was interrupted by the old man and smiled, saying, "Even if it's a reward for your appreciation, sir, don't hesitate. It's difficult to accept a grand occasion." "Since that's the case, I'll be more respectful than obedient," Qiao Sheng chuckled lightly and said. The old man nodded and asked Qiao Sheng to wait until he left for the kitchen to start cooking. Qiao Sheng was waiting for the arrival of the meal, and looking at the piano on stage, some thought seemed to emerge in his heart. It seems possible to try adding the piano effect to Titan. "Unfortunately, there aren't many materials available now," Qiao Sheng said with regret as time passed. The old man also slowly served the signature dishes here, making Qiao Sheng eat exceptionally comfortable. "Thank you for the old man's emotion," Qiao said to the old man, thanking him for eating raw and drinking well. The old man chuckled lightly, waved his hand, and expressed how important it was, and Qiao Sheng, who was full, walked to the entrance of the restaurant and looked at the old man, waving goodbye to him alone, asking him, "Do you have any other requirements, sir? I may not come next time. I don't have anything else I need anymore, and now I'm all over. If I'm sorry, I'm afraid my music hasn't spread to all over the world," the old man replied softly, with a tone of sadness and self-deprecation. "Can you tell me which piece of music?" Qiao Sheng walked over and asked seriously. "Of course, sir." The old man looked at Qiao Sheng deeply and said with relief. After thinking of something, the old man took out one of the scores from the piano and handed it to Qiao Sheng, saying solemnly, "As people age, they no longer care about reputation. If it comes in handy one day, feel free to use it with confidence." "I understand. Goodbye, old man," Qiao Sheng said, holding a score and nodding at the restaurant entrance. Before leaving, the old man looked at Qiao Sheng, who had gone far away, and turned to sit on the piano to continue playing. "Tongxing, it's already completed." "Ha! What is this?" The Qiao Sheng salvation system saw the score in Qiao Sheng's hand and asked, "A dream?" Qiao Sheng pondered for a moment and whispered back, "Fellow traveler, I cannot understand this, but since you have taken it, it is useful. Let's go, the toilet king won't stop." "Well, let's go." As soon as the words fell, Qiao Sheng transformed into a titan and instantly dissipated into a beam of light that disappeared without a trace. The toilet side is in a meeting again, thinking about the battle plan for the Titan sound system and another invisible Titan surveillance system. Stibidai dop. Yes stibidai dop. They are fiercely discussing, with only the toilet king being mute, not saying anything, and his eyes solemnly contemplating something. But just then, when the toilet king saw a spot of light, he was furious and began to shout, "Stibidai dop. Yes stibidai dop." The toilet dynasty collided with the shining spot of the light, but was grabbed by a hand extending from the light and unable to move. Other large and small toilets immediately rushed up when they saw the sudden appearance of the giant titan, attempting to kill Qiao Sheng. Qiao Sheng grabbed the toilet king with his left hand and threw it forcefully, directly smashing a large area of toilet people in front of him into a mess. Immediately, the two gun turrets on Qiao Sheng's shoulders began to rotate one after another, quickly shooting blue tracking light balls towards the surroundings. The damage caused by tracking the light ball instantly kills the small toilet owner and causes great pain to the large toilet owner who wants to approach. Qiao Sheng looked around the exploding area, and the laser cannon on his right arm aimed at the nearest large toilet man, shooting out desperate high temperatures. Subsequently, Qiao Sheng slowly advanced towards the toilet king. The toilet people around him who wanted to stop him couldn't bear the damage from the gun turrets. Even if they approached, Qiao Sheng punched them and they were stunned. Even fainting, the toilet king roared angrily at Qiao Sheng, but he was slowly retreating and he was afraid. A repetitive stibidai suddenly came from the air, and it was a rocket toilet man that self-destructed. "Has it been repaired? It was so cheap that I couldn't step on it before." Qiao Sheng raised his big eyes and watched as the rocket toilet man gradually approached. When he reached a certain distance, he immediately turned his whole body and sidestepped to avoid the rocket toilet man's self-destructive behavior. The rocket toilet man was also very shocked, but he could only fly a little further and then fly over. As rocket toilet man was about to pass Qiao Sheng, he lifted his right hand and aimed his laser gun at the toilet king to start charging. As he flew over completely, the laser gun also fired at the Toilet King. The Toilet King immediately counterattacked with a laser, shifting the light like last time, but he finally remembered that he had a laser and started shooting towards Qiao Sheng. But when the laser hits Qiao Sheng, it's like nothing happened. Even when it hits the core, Qiao Sheng has no intention of protecting it and is gradually approaching the Toilet King. The Toilet King suddenly roared, and the giant toilet carrying lasers and toilet spiders began to attack Qiao Sheng, hoping to replace quality with quantity. The overlap of the laser does indeed increase its power, but it only leaves scratches and smoke on Qiao Sheng's huge body. Qiao Sheng's firepower is not inferior to the toilet men currently owned by the Toilet King. In just a few minutes, the cannons on Qiao Sheng's shoulders and arms destroyed most of the toilet men into pieces. Only the Toilet King and several large toilet lasers are left behind to support the resistance in the back row. Qiao Sheng didn't want to play anymore and rushed straight towards the Toilet King. In the shock of the Toilet King's gaze, he punched him flying, and then the laser cannon on his arm aimed at the Toilet King with energy storage. Qiao Sheng slowly raised his hand. Although the other toilet men were also attacking, Qiao Sheng was too hard to shake him at all, let alone two extremely powerful tracking gun emplacements counterattacking. After the laser cannon on Qiao Sheng's arm was fully charged, it burst out a laser larger than the muzzle and headed towards the Toilet King, who fell into the air. The laser accidentally collided with the Toilet King and exploded into colorful colors in the air, with parts falling off one after another from the air. Qiao Sheng activated thermal and acoustic detection as a precaution, but did not see the Toilet King successfully. Qiao Sheng looked at the gradually retreating toilet man and his question was answered in his heart immediately. Qiao Sheng lifted his weapon and indiscriminately attacked the toilet man, even destroying many cities. It's okay, the city can still be rebuilt, Qiao Sheng said awkwardly, fellow travelers. The Toilet King is not dead. The clever life-saving system suddenly reminds him, salvation. Why did you say it now? Qiao Sheng quickly asked how the situation was. After the frequency of the Toilet King disappeared for 3 seconds, it reappeared, but I did not perceive the Toilet King, so I did not choose to tell you. I thought it was just a reaction of the same frequency, until after you killed the toilet man, the frequency shifted to a further position and there was a signal blocking it. Companions, we are in big trouble. The Toilet King is just one of them, and there are even more dangerous things. Clever life-saving system low channel, so, we can't find the real time location of the Toilet King, can we? Qiao Sheng asked solemnly. I'm afraid so, but fortunately he did suffer a heavy blow. Let's go back and think about it. It seems that saving a world requires taking a longer path. Qiao turned into a brilliant light and dissipated. Chapter 6. Planning. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Just after Qiao Sheng left, a small toilet man quietly crawled out of the sewer and quickly ran away from the surroundings. After a while, it's been 3 or 4 hours since we last met, fellow traveler, I always feel something's wrong. The Qiao Sheng salvation system looked at Qiao Sheng, who was eating, and said, what's wrong? Qiao Sheng raised his head in confusion as he ate the instant noodles he had just bought from an empty snack shop. Is the Toilet King really the main force? I have some doubts. Do you remember the Titan Sound Man? Qiao Sheng's salvation system said, of course I remember, tell me your guess. Qiao Sheng stopped talking and waited for the system's response. As the Toilet King, how could I not be on guard against encountering you twice? He must have taken a risk this time just to take something from you. But I can't understand what he wants. What about the Titan Sound Man? Qiao Sheng asked. I used the same marking method as I used to mark the Titan monitor, but just now, I suddenly realized that the Titan speaker's beacon channel was malfunctioning. Let's go find the surveillance personnel to inquire about the war situation. The Qiao Sheng salvation system suggests. I understand. Qiao Sheng quickly finished the noodles and processed the rest before transforming into a titan. Qiao Sheng looked around at the still intact houses and tall buildings, but as he was about to leave, he fell into contemplation. Tongxing, what are you thinking? The Qiao Sheng salvation system asks. It does not understand people's emotions towards certain things, but it can learn for its own Tongxing until it can understand Tongxing's behavior. I'm thinking. Wouldn't it be very lively here if there weren't toilet people? This war, which was not brought about by humans, has resulted in few human traces, and over time, all memories of the past will be completely destroyed. If there were no me, how many days would this war last, or perhaps for a few years, decades? After speaking, Qiao Sheng let out a sigh, and the huge figure appeared somewhat desolate in the sunlight. The Qiao Sheng salvation system fell silent, but soon it comforted and said, "Fellow travelers. It is precisely because of this that our strength becomes crucial. We must end war and thus save the world." Really? But I think they already see me as a thorn in their side. They have already started to come and seek death on their own. Qiao Sheng responded to the system and turned his head to look in the direction of the sun. There were several black spots under the sun that were clearly a bit far away, but Qiao Sheng could clearly see that they were a large number of toilet people. Fellow travelers, it seems that they have been planning for a long time. The Toilet King's test is just to confirm something, and now they have fully confirmed it to lure you, the solitary big fish. The Qiao Sheng salvation system joked, "Oh, since that's the case, let them see the power of saving the world," but unfortunately, the environment here will be destroyed in an instant. Qiao Sheng sighed and then walked directly towards a large number of toilet people. No matter what kind of conspiracy or scheme it is not worth mentioning. This is the absolute confidence brought by the power of Titan, a TV host said. Yes, that's right, but this time, the toilet man has already completed a terrifying weapon against Qiao Sheng. Chapter 7. Hazards. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Qiao Sheng had direct contact with a large number of toilet workers and began a war. The powerful firepower made it difficult for the toilet man to move, and during the battle, Qiao Sheng suddenly discovered that the toilet man had a unique appearance. Even most surveillance personnel began to charge towards him and attack him. What's going on? Qiao Sheng looked at the surveillance person below who was starting to crawl his legs and thought solemnly, "Fellow travelers, there is a toilet man at the back of the monitor's neck. That's a parasite. Be careful of your surroundings." Qiao Sheng understood everything and immediately captured the surveillance footage. The system then controlled the two eyes behind him to observe the surroundings, wary of parasitic toilet people. Stibidai dop yes stibidai dop. Qiao Sheng looked at the large area of toilet people ahead and slowly raised his hands. The four cannons on his shoulders and arms began to attack wildly. Those toilet people cannot resist the power of ingenuity. They are burned to death or blown to pieces directly. While Qiao Sheng was crazily killing, a toilet man secretly arrived near Qiao Sheng, attracted by a large number of other toilet people. The toilet man with a big smile gestured behind him, and a super large toilet man walked out from under the cover of a tall building. The tall toilet man was almost like the toilet king. At the toilet tie, a huge gun connected to the toilet water tank was aimed at Qiao Sheng. Fellow travelers, be careful of the rear. The Qiao Sheng salvation system immediately reminds you. Qiao Sheng listened to the tone of the system and immediately abandoned attacking towards the front. He turned his head and raised his hand, preparing to charge the arm gun and directly burn him down. But as soon as he saw Qiao Sheng turn around, the small toilet man immediately started singing, "Stibidai dop yes stibidai dop." As the sound sounded, the turret of the super large toilet man behind him revealed a light and then erupted into a rapid flow of light, carrying a circular ring of interval vibration that struck Qiao Sheng. Qiao Sheng was hit by this vibration, and all four guns were completely disconnected. Even the rear camera destroyed the field of view module. However, this vibration cannot last long and stopped in a few seconds. Fellow travelers, Titan's armed damage rate is 90%, recommended evacuation. The Qiao Sheng salvation system immediately proposed. Qiao Sheng looked around at the city with thick smoke and damaged wreckage, feeling a bit angry. He then ignored the system's suggestion and quickly stepped forward towards the vibrating toilet man. The small toilet holder was clearly frightened by Qiao Sheng, who could still move around. He immediately called out to the super large toilet holder behind him, but the super large toilet holder did not reply. He just watched Qiao Sheng quietly, and the super large toilet holder was a bit stunned. Qiao Sheng immediately ran to the front of them, punched the super large toilet man and smashed it into the ground, then dismantled its cannon and stomped on the small toilet man with one foot. "Fellow traveler, keep the cannon, I'm useful." The the Qiao Sheng salvation system looked at the angry Qiao Sheng and quickly said, afraid that he would dismantle the cannon from above. Qiao Sheng regained his senses and incorporated the cannon into the system space, then turned his head to look at the continuous arrival of toilet people, as well as the large toilet people with guns on more than one toilet water tank, which made Qiao Sheng feel somewhat solemn. The vibration just now, he could feel that it had indeed caused damage to the Titan's body, and it was a type of accumulation and readiness. If he was hit too many times, it would definitely not be good. Withdraw. Fellow travelers, we still have many opportunities. The solemn proposal of the Qiao Sheng salvation system, withdraw, this quantity is already very troublesome. Qiao Sheng investigated his situation and found that the vibration was not simply disconnecting the weapon connection, but directly destroying the weapon without remote means. He, coupled with that vibration, is like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. So, the best way is to retreat. Qiao Sheng immediately turned into a light and dissipated before the toilet man reached the attack. Distance. This region, as Qiao Sheng said, has been destroyed in this short period of time. Chapter 8. Rescue. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. The light flickered and Qiao Sheng stood in place, looking at the complex and intact city center. The system also had no intention of touching the mold of Qiao Sheng and researching the cannon that caused trouble for Titans. Qiao Sheng on its own. Qiao Sheng watched as the sun slowly set, and the setting sun hit his huge body. Even though the tall buildings were folded, they still illuminated Qiao Sheng. And then, just as Qiao Sheng was preparing to find a place to seriously deal with the artillery issue, he suddenly saw scattered surveillance and sound personnel running over from a distance. The surveillance personnel supported each other, while the sound personnel looked ahead and opened the way to protect them. Soon, they also saw Qiao Sheng watching them through the tall building. They immediately became happy and accelerated their speed to approach Qiao Sheng. Qiao Sheng looked at the accelerating surveillance and sound personnel, checked for the parasitic toilet man on the back of his neck, and finally squatted down with peace of mind. The surveillance and sound personnel soon arrived in front of Qiao Sheng. They looked at such a huge object, and one of the dilapidated surveillance personnel anxiously shouted to Qiao Sheng. Qiao Sheng, we need your help." Qiao Sheng looked at his scattered limbs and felt a little worried, so he pointed to him. The surveillance person looked at Qiao Sheng and pointed at him, then understood something and immediately replied. It's okay, my body can still move. Qiao Sheng, don't worry." Qiao Sheng looked at his self-improvement and immediately asked. "Tell me, what happened?" Upon hearing these words, the surveillance person anxiously replied. "Titan Crimson suddenly defected. But we know he wouldn't do such a thing, please help us investigate the reason or rescue him." After saying this, the surveillance person was about to do something, but forgot that his body was missing limbs. He then ordered the surrounding surveillance personnel to not react, but soon walked over and helped him up. That fell into silence around, with only the mechanical movement of Qiao Sheng's body making a crisp sound, Tongxing. "I don't recommend this matter," the Qiao Sheng salvation system said. "It just heard it, but it has also calculated that if Qiao Sheng passes, 80% of them won't be able to save the Titan Sound Man, and it's easy to send themselves in." Upon hearing the system's words, Qiao Sheng smiled slightly at the corner of his mouth and controlled his body to slowly stand up and look at the sky that had been replaced by the moon. The huge mechanical roar of Qiao Sheng made all the surveillance and audio personnel look at him. "Don't worry, he's a comrade. I won't watch his comrade die without saving him," Qiao Sheng said, and turned into a light that dissipated. The surveillance person and the sound person looked at each other. The surveillance person gave a thumbs up to where Qiao Sheng had left, and the sound person danced and played a song in place. But at that moment, the severely damaged surveillance person suddenly said, "Let's hurry back to the base, we need to help Titan Qiao Sheng." "Why?" the large surveillance person asked. "Titan Qiao Sheng has been in poor condition since just now, and even the cannons on his body are loose. There must be a problem, let's go back quickly and call for reinforcements." The severely damaged surveillance person replied. He was concerned about the chaos just now, but now he has realized the seriousness of the situation. Now Qiao Sheng has gone wrong, and they can only quickly take people to help. Other surveillance and audio personnel also realized the problem and immediately carried the severely damaged surveillance personnel towards the direction of the base, accelerating forward just to be helpful at critical moments. Fellow travelers, it seems that we have made an irrational decision. The Qiao Sheng salvation system says so. Qiao Sheng did not reply, but as he watched the Titan Sound Man standing on a high-rise building and the large toilet man equipped with lasers destroying the city, his heart was filled with anger. If you're not rational, then you're not rational, Qiao Sheng said and jumped out of the hidden tall building. Compared to episode 33, G.Man was severely injured by Qiao Sheng's attack, and now he is a large toilet man with a laser. The Titan sound engineer heard a loud mechanical roar and realized something was wrong. He immediately turned around, but when he saw Qiao Sheng, he couldn't react and was immediately grabbed and smashed down from a high-rise building. Qiao Sheng pressed down on the Titan speaker and punched him in the head, but did not do anything to the Titan speaker. Even the cannon on his wrist continued to attack Qiao Sheng. As soon as Qiao Sheng was about to do something, Yu Guang was attracted by a blue circular light flow approaching rapidly in the distance ahead. With a gap between them, the parasitic Titan Sound Man took this opportunity and immediately used the thrust of the rocket backpack to push Qiao Sheng away. Qiao Sheng also realized and immediately left the place where he had just been, and the light flow was hitting the ground where he had just been. Looking at the invisible danger in the distance and the Titan Sound Man roaring at him in the sky, Qiao Sheng furrowed his brows as he looked at the very unfavorable situation and began to contemplate the next retreat. Chapter 9. Battle. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Before Qiao Sheng could even think about the best situation, the Titan Sound Man had already raised his gun and attacked Qiao Sheng. Qiao Sheng was blown back to his senses by this cannon. Although the handgun damage of the Titan Soundman was not enough to harm him, there were not only Titan Soundmen here. The people around the toilet immediately realized that they were rushing towards Qiao Sheng, as well as a peculiar variant of the toilet body human-shaped. Qiao Sheng's device only has the large eye area left to operate normally, with insufficient reaction power compared to the previous 360 degrees observation counterattack. It can only withstand the Titan Sound Man's handgun while dealing with the surrounding toilet. People step on a medium-sized toilet holder with one foot, grab the peculiar variant of the toilet holder's body shape just now, and let the system analyze it. Fellow travelers, this is a connection, not an evolution, please rest assured, the Qiao Sheng salvation system answers. After learning about it, Qiao Sheng casually threw this variant towards the Titan Sound Man, and the powerful force directly smashed and rotated the floating Titan Sound Man 90 degrees in the air, make it unable to quickly continue attacking Qiao Sheng. After Qiao Sheng threw out the mutant, he turned around and punched the laser large toilet man, causing him to faint, and then pulled down the toilet leash. Looking at the toilet people flying around, Qiao Sheng came up with a solution and slammed hard at a building using precise calculations to finally control the kinetic energy of the destroyed ruins and throw it towards the flying toilet man. This shot completely wiped out 5 or 6 flying toilet people, and then coincidentally turned around to look at the Titan Sound person who had just turned back, continuing to slap towards the building. But this time, after the slap, he picked up all the upper buildings and threw them vigorously towards the Titan Sound Man. The parasitic Titan Sound Man looked at the scattered debris flying towards him and destroyed it with a handgun. However, when he saw a huge building crashing towards him, he immediately retreated with a rocket backpack towards his back. But what is the power of Qiao Sheng? With 100,000 tons of projectile kinetic energy, the building has about 5 floors. Even if it's not at the speed of sound, it's very fast. Just smashed the Titan Sound Man down. He didn't even have time to use his rocket backpack to avoid it. Just as Qiao Sheng approached, a blue circular ring separated the flowing light from ahead again, but this time the distance was very close. Stibidai dop yes stibidai dop. Qiao Sheng immediately turned sideways to avoid it, and then saw a large number of toilet people loaded with vibrating cannons singing happily and coming towards this side. Qiao Sheng realized that the problem was once again serious and directly switched tactics to weaken the Titan Sound Man instead of rescuing. Even if saved, he can't run away. Qiao Sheng can't take the Titan Sound Man with him, and even if he does, he can't run far. With the long-range impact of the previous toilet man's vibration waves, rescuing him would be a meaningless battle. Mainly because Qiao Sheng only has one person and fights alone. Immediately ran forward and punched the Titan Sound man before he got up, smashing his face into the ground, grabbing his handgun and dismantling it for him immediately. The Titan Sound engineer also roared with anger and began to counterattack Qiao Sheng, but Qiao Sheng's hardness made the fist of the Titan Sound man as soft as cotton, without any damage. Qiao Sheng flipped over and forcefully removed the rocket backpack. Just as Qiao Sheng destroyed the rocket backpack, those toilet people launched vibration waves towards Qiao Sheng again. Qiao Sheng immediately rolls towards the right and uses the building to block it. The power of the vibration waves directly shatters the building, making it an excellent weapon specifically designed to strike from the inside out. Qiao Sheng ran out of the building, grabbed the Titan speaker and threw it at the toilet seat, directly smashing a large area and some large toilet seats in disarray, then turned around and dissipated into light. The parasitized Titan speaker grabbed the toilet of the toilet man and stood up, roaring angrily, then ran towards the direction where Qiao Sheng had left. Other toilet people also showed angry expressions and followed the Titan Sound man towards Qiao Sheng. Why can they know where Qiao Sheng is heading? It seems that not only for defense, but also for escape methods. What should we do? Chapter 10. Gathering. Companions. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Just as Qiao Sheng was dealing with the matter of the Titan Sound man, the team encountered Qiao Sheng's surveillance and sound man and rushed to the headquarters base, especially for the severely damaged surveillance personnel. Even if their bodies are incomplete, they erupt at an extremely fast speed. At this point, the Titan monitors have been repaired, but the monitoring scientists are considering how to upgrade. Allowing the Titan monitors to take action now is not conducive to future development and must be upgraded. As the severely damaged surveillance personnel broke into the repair room of the Titan surveillance personnel, the group of surveillance scientists stopped to discuss and looked at the surveillance personnel in unison. The large surveillance person closest to the door helped him up and placed him in his seat. He then called for a repairman to come and repair the surveillance person. The severely damaged surveillance person, while receiving repairs, said to the surveillance scientist, "We have encountered Titan Qiao Sheng and he needs our help. Companion, you should know that we can no longer allocate extra resources to handle trivial matters," said a surveillance scientist regretfully, who believed it was just a small matter and did not realize the seriousness of the situation. The surveillance person clearly understood the issue with his words and immediately said, "Sorry, it's me who's in a hurry. The Titan Sound engineer has switched sides." What? Some surveillance scientists stood up in shock and couldn't set up a channel. The other surveillance scientists looked at each other, and then one asked, "What is the relationship between this matter and Titan Qiao Sheng?" Just as they heard about the topic of Qiao Sheng, the Titan surveillance personnel had already looked towards the conference room and listened quietly. "After Titan Qiao Sheng met us, we were too anxious and asked him to handle the matter of the Titan Sound man. However, it wasn't until he left that we realized that Qiao Sheng's weapons were all loose, so he must be in poor condition. We need to support him. He is fighting alone," the surveillance person said in one breath, and the conference room fell into silence. The surveillance scientists and the large surveillance personnel looked at each other, and the handling of this matter was very complicated. Firstly, Qiao Sheng is not a surveillance person and has never joined them. He just helps out and takes advantage of the situation. We can only provide assistance to a certain extent, but according to what he said, if the Titan Sound personnel defect and Qiao Sheng handles it, then it's the same front as them, and they should send support. The biggest question is how to provide support and whether or not to provide it. To provide support, we must reduce the damage, but our support will inevitably result in heavy losses if we don't go. We may face greater and more dangers and problems. How to make a decision becoming the biggest disaster and a major destiny challenge. Immediately after, they discussed and supported one side. Although they spoke with reason and evidence, they were ultimately silenced by one sentence. "We don't have many companions in this theater anymore," said a large surveillance monitor. "The number of toilet people is increasing day by day, but our losses are directly proportional to replacement." What is this concept? "It's like fighting a big war and we will definitely suffer heavy losses," said the large surveillance person who proposed that no one will fight. He also wanted to support, but they really don't have anyone left looking at the surveillance personnel who didn't know what to do with each other. The severely damaged surveillance personnel lowered their heads, feeling somewhat disappointed, but at that moment, the Titan surveillance personnel made a sound. "We must support, we can't lose another friend anymore." "But Titan is fearless, we don't have many companions anymore," said the large surveillance person, "then give it our all." "As long as he survives, we must still have hope," said the Titan monitor firmly. The surveillance scientist and the large surveillance personnel looked at each other and gave a thumbs up to the Titan surveillance personnel. The large surveillance personnel immediately left to gather troops, and surveillance scientists immediately began to study the direction of upgrading. In the just debate, they finally thought of how to upgrade the power of Titan surveillance personnel, and then began to work hard. Looking at the busy crowd, the heavily damaged surveillance person who had already been repaired gave a solemn thumbs up to the Titan surveillance person. The Titan surveillance personnel looked at him and responded, then made a loud mechanical roar and left here.